screen specialist showcase has begun.
This was terrible. That just sounds like a dumb movie. I'm sure there's plenty of podcasts. This is so funny.
The following is a fan-off production.
They call me Alice in Wonderland. They try to lure me with a man. Go, oh, what do you know? Is that a rabbit hole? Oh, I gotta see where we go. So off with my head, fell in love again. You lose your head, you lose your heart, fall apart.
What's up, all you stars and studs? This is former WWE Diva and current First Lady of Ring of Honor, current iconic champion of Ring of Honor, Maria Kanellis, and I am here with my co-host, the amazing, the wonderful, the extremely wonderful, perfect fiance of mine, Michael Bennett.
I don't think I can live up to that introduction. I'm not going to lie.
Well, what was wrong with my introduction?
I can't live up to it.
Why not?
I'm just not that good.
But you are.
I don't know, man. I don't know.
Really? You're not?
I don't know.
Oh, dude, why am I marrying you then?
I don't know. You tell me.
I made a bad choice, maybe. I don't know. Maybe I should, rethink all of this. Just save the date for awesomeness.
Well, maybe.
Maybe dance party. Save the date for Chicago dance party.
Just a party in your pants. A pants party.
I'll pants party you. So, the wedding is almost here.
Well, almost is a relative term.
Comparatively, what?
Wow, easy for you to say.
Comparing it to the engagement, which lasted almost 2 years, 2 months and some days to the wedding is much smaller than the original 2 years.
2 months and some days.
2 months and some days, dude. Are you ready for this? I don't know. I don't know if you're ready for this jelly.
Is that what the wedding is? Jelly?
Sure.
Jelly wedding?
So I should apologize to everybody. If I sound a little weird or off, it's because I'm actually downtown Chicago at my sister's apartment, condominium, because we are stuffing envelopes for the wedding invitations.
That sounds dirty.
It sounds very dirty. Why does the word stuff always sound like...
Why did you say stuffing envelopes? Why did you use that term?
Would you like to stuff my envelope?
Wow, see? Now you just crossed the line.
Why? I meant like my our...
Yeah.
We didn't even invite ourselves to our wedding.
Do you
Is
usually?
that a thing?
I don't think so.
No. Do you invite yourself to your own party? Probably not.
No, you're hosts. You're not invited. You're not a guest. You're a host. Do you invite yourself to your own house?
Sometimes.
Yeah, do you?
Would you like to come to my house? Self answers, yes, I would. You can do that, I think.
I don't know about that.
We've seen each other how many days? 2 days in the past month?
It feels like 2 hours.
Well, I mean, it is at wrestling shows, so it's a much fewer amount of actual individual time together rather than with everybody else around.
I feel like we've had 2 personal hours and all working hours together.
Yeah.
I've been clocked in.
Yeah. You clocked into work and then you might clock into personal time?
Yeah. But it's short.
I think that we do a good job with it. I just think that it would be nice if there was more time that we got to spend together.
I would like this. Hopefully after the wedding, when we're an actual married couple, we can spend time together. That would be nice.
What if we spend time together and realize we don't like each other, though?
What a waste. Your parents will be very angry.
They did. They told me that they would kill us both at this point.
Well, if we're ever found dead, you know who to blame.
My father.
Yeah.
Well, and I think for those at home, this might be interesting. As untraditional as I am, we did end up going the traditional route with the wedding because my father is paying for the wedding, and then your parents are taking care of the after brunch.
Mm-hmm.
And it's strange that it ends up being full circle. I always was like, oh, that's not going to happen. I'm not going to do it that way. I'm not going to be traditional. I'm not going to. And then it ends up being I stay in Illinois and you stay in Massachusetts until after our wedding. Our parents are paying for the things that you usually do at a wedding. And it turned out so traditional. Isn't that weird?
Very. Very, very.
Did you think that that I would want things to be traditional as this?
No, I don't know. I think our guest is on, though.
Our guest is? Really?
Sure.
Do you want to introduce the guest?
Here he is.
Hello.
Hi.
Hi, buddy.
How's it going? How's it going, guys?
How are you?
I'm not too bad. I'm sitting in my daughter's nursery right now so that there's no loud noises around me as I talk to you guys for a bit.
That
I think
sounds
maybe we
comforting.
should introduce our guest.
Our
Don't you?
guest needs no introduction. That's how.
All right, let's not. No, that's it. Don't say anything else, and they can figure out who I am.
Yeah, let's see if they can
Okay.
figure it out.
Perfect.
We can do it that way.
Even
now
though I already tweeted it out, but we'll see. If
I know I saw, but for those who didn't, you know.
So you've been having a lot of changes lately and having your final matches at different places. Is it strange to be tying up loose ends?
I mean, in a way, I feel like it needed to happen in a lot. Like for Ring of Honor, for example, as much as I loved Ring of Honor for so long, I feel like it's going to be good for them to not have me there, and it's going to be good for me to not be there for a while, just because I think change is good, and new things are good, especially in professional wrestling. So I feel like it's really the best, the best for everybody. I think that's the way I feel anyway. I don't know if they feel the same, but I think they would. And then, everywhere else, I mean, there's places that I didn't wrestle that often or for that long that I kind of bid my goodbyes to for a while anyway. And I don't know, I wouldn't say weird or strange, but I guess it's, I don't know. I don't know how to describe the feeling, to be honest with you. It's hard to put into words. But I think in the end, it all kind of feels right. It kind of feels like it kind of feels like things are happening exactly the way they should be. That's kind of where I'm at right now.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, definitely. Did the final 3 matches you had at Ring of Honor turn out the way that you wanted them to?
Yeah, I mean, I really wanted to wrestle Tommaso at least once before I got to go. We got to do like a 4-way match once, but I wanted to have a singles match with him because somehow in the last 3 years, not only in Ring of Honor but anywhere, and I wrestle at a lot of places where Tommaso wrestled, like 2CW and Beyond Wrestling, and towards the end PWG. Somehow it never happened, so I'm glad we got to do it at least once. And he punched me in the face multiple times, very hard, very, very hard. I mean, I expected it to be hard. But, Tommaso and I are pretty friendly, and man, I guess I didn't expect my friend to just go that crazy, but it was good. It was a bit unexpected, but I really enjoyed it, and I think, I think everybody that was there enjoyed it. And then wrestled Silas Young Friday in Cincinnati, and that was pretty rough. I enjoyed that one, too. Silas is, I've been a big fan of everything Silas has done in Ring of Honor so far. And I think he's going to keep doing some really good things. So I'm glad I was part of, maybe helping that along, I guess. And then, Steve Corino on Saturday was, I couldn't have asked for a better match to, end things with. So, I wouldn't have done it that way. I wouldn't have been last on the show. I wouldn't have been following all these great matches that, I don't know, showcased what the company is really all about. I just wanted me and Steve to go out there and have fun and just do our match for us, which is kind of weird, I guess, because there was a whole, crowd there. But really, I almost saw this match as my match with Steve just for us. Like, it was our match. Obviously, people enjoyed it, and that's great. But, I didn't want pressure. I especially didn't want everything to be about me and my last show. But I understand why Ring of Honor felt like it should be that way, and I appreciate, the sentiment and everything. But ultimately, I was very happy with how everything came out, especially Saturday night. It was a lot of fun. 2 people were missing, though, but what are you going to do? Can I say? They had other engagements, I guess.
Yeah, my engagement was me in my toilet seat puking. Which was
as important an engagement as any, I think, to be honest.
It was absolutely amazing, so I loved it. How long have you've been with Ring of Honor for a while? Do you have one memory that you like the most, or one that, I know you and Generico had so many moments in Ring of Honor. Do you think that is your favorite moment in Ring of Honor, or do you have any other?
It's hard to say. When we won the tag titles in Boston, I think it was in 2009. It could have been in 2008. I think it was in 2008, actually. It was so crazy that night. Like, the people's reaction and just the feel, I don't know. It was just a really incredible moment. And, like, he had his girlfriend there, and my wife was there, my son was there, and my parents were there. So it was a big moment, and it was just the crowd reacting the way they did made it even bigger. So that would probably be among, the top moments of my stay in Ring of Honor. But like you said, there's been so many of them between me and Generico, but I don't know. Like, there's been moments between me and Steve and me and Jimmy Jacobs and me and Cole Cabana. There's actually a very underrated moment, which a lot of people ask me what my favorite moment in Ring of Honor was, and that's the ultimate one, I think. And a lot of people kind of look at me weird when I say what it is, but it was in Toronto in 2010. What happened was me and Steve attacked Generico in the ring, because that's what we did a lot back then. And Cole Cabana came in for the big save, and Steve and I, ran away from him because we were scared little girls. And then as we were in the entranceway, jaw jacking, whatever, Colt and Generico were in the ring. And from about 20 feet away, Colt spat his gum at us, and I caught it with my mouth. It was a moment that I'll never forget. Steve couldn't believe it. The fans on the right side of the entrance that saw me catch it couldn't believe it. Colt and Generico both were aghast. They couldn't believe it either. I couldn't even believe it. But it was perfect. For what it's worth, Colt deserves all the credit for the spit. It was coming right for me. I just went, and that was it. But that's probably my favorite moment in the history of Ring of Honor, honestly. Too bad. If you watch it on the DVD, you kind of see it, but it was never made a big deal of, but I feel like that should have been my number one accomplishment this whole time.
That could have been on a best of DVD.
If it had been up to me, it would have been. I'm pretty sure I actually pitched it for one of the Kavinsky DVDs they made, and they couldn't find the footage because that particular show, the release somehow got screwed up and they lost the footage, so they couldn't even put my match from that show, let alone me catching that gum. But I swear it happened. I swear it happened.
So, like, when he spit it, were you trying to catch it, or was your mouth just open?
I just saw it coming, and I'm like, I'm going to catch it with my mouth. I think I maybe moved an inch to the left and caught it, but it was a great spit. Great spit.
Yeah, props to Cold for that. That's.
If I hadn't been paying attention, it would have hit me right in the eye. You know what I mean? But I had my eye on it, and I was good.
Which also could have made a great moment, too, had it just bobbed up.
Imagine it had stuck into my eyeball. And now I'm blind from one eye forever.
Because you could wear an eye patch.
Yeah. Man.
Then you would have
Maybe it would have been better that way, though. I don't know.
It would have gone a totally different way then if you would have got spit in the eye and then wore an eye patch, and that would have been a completely different storyline.
Yeah. It's a big problem. It's bittersweet to talk about that moment because I'm so proud of it, but I know I'll never be able to see it. It's never going to be made public.
Maybe you could recreate it, you know?
There's no way that can ever happen.
I see you. If I have
That's
gum,
never
I
going
will
to
spit it
happen.
at you.
No, that's once in a lifetime.
There is no way that's ever going to be, like, never, we could try 1,000 times. It would never work again. I guarantee it.
That's like winning the lottery, I think. I don't think it'll ever...
It was better than winning the lottery. I guarantee it. It was the proudest I've ever been. All I did after we came to the back was I just kept going to everybody. Did you see me catch that gum? Nobody had any clue what I was talking about. I think that they had a couple of I think Nakajima was on that show. I went up to him and asked him. He had no idea. He hurt his ankle during his match. He didn't care. I was still bothering him about it. He had no idea. He didn't even speak English.
Did you see that? Did you see that? Did you see that? Look at your robot.
Yeah, that's all I did. But yeah.
So was it always Ring of Honor for you that you wanted to be a part of, or did you want to go to WWE, or did you want to go to PWG? Did you just want to wrestle? Like, what was your dream when you got into wrestling?
When I started wrestling, I wanted to go to WWE for sure, and then with time, to me, in my, I was 11 years old when I started watching wrestling. To me, there was only WWE. Even though I knew that WCW existed, I never watched it. And, towards the end of ECW, I started paying attention to ECW because it really caught my eye and I really liked it. But it was, by the time I started paying attention to it, it was almost folded. But, I was always a WWF fan from the start. So, as I dreamed of becoming a wrestler, that was my dream. But then as I started training and I started, started growing older and noticing that, there was all these independent wrestling companies that people will talk about that I had no idea what they were for, the longest time until I was really 17 or 18. Even when I started training, I was 15. And then I started wrestling when I was 16. I knew of independent wrestling promotions as tiny little companies that would run shows around my area, but none of them, no offense to anybody who would wrestle for those companies back in the day, but none of them were really worth, my time. I didn't, and obviously nobody ever made any money from those, so I didn't consider that an option as a way of becoming to me, that wasn't being a wrestler. Wrestling, and to this day, this might sound upsetting to a lot of people, but there's a lot of companies here in Montreal that run shows and, they're guys call themselves wrestlers, but they're not wrestlers. They're guys who wrestle once or twice a month, and then, they whatever their job is what they do. But they like to say, "Oh, I'm a wrestler," but you're not. You're it's like my dad plays hockey once a week. He doesn't say I'm a hockey player. But anyway, so but as I started, hang on, guys. I think my son needs to talk to me. Give me a quick second.
Okay.
He wants in the nursery.
Okay, you want to sleep?
It's bedtime.
Sorry, guys. We're interrupted by cuteness.
No.
All right.
So that's okay.
So,
That's always acceptable.
My niece might be coming in to join us in a second, so that's
oh,
all
there
right.
you go. I guess everyone's going to bed now, so it's good night time. So yeah, as I obviously when I first started, I wanted to be, I want to wrestle for WWF, but my trainer ran his own company, and I would wrestle for him, and he had fairly big shows in front of a couple thousands of people, but he would only run once every 3 or 4 months, so I would only wrestle once every 3 or 4 months. Mm-hmm. But with that, I started noticing more and more wrestling companies around Montreal, and some of them were actually really starting to intrigue me. Like one of them, for example, was IWS, which is where I probably really got my start because, like I said, my trainer would run shows once every 4 months, so it's not like a lot of people were, talking about me or paying attention to me. Even though there were thousands of people at his shows, it was more people that would see an ad in the paper for his show because he had that kind of, that kind of name that he could put an ad in the paper and then there'd be 3,000 people at his show just because they went to see the wrestling. They didn't care who was wrestling or, you know what I mean? It was just we're going to go see a wrestling show now, and then that's it. They don't follow wrestling. They don't think about it for another year until he comes back to town with his show. But the real wrestling fans around Montreal were all paying attention to IWS at that point. And while I, in my head I was like, IWS really, it's just a small little company. What am I going to do there? I ended up going to a show with a friend, and once I saw what they did, I was like, I got to be a part of this. And then, a lot of things happened, but I ended up joining IWS and leaving the company I was working for because that was another thing. My trainer did things in a certain way where you couldn't wrestle for other companies if you wrestled for him. It was only him, and that's
Really?
it. Yeah, that's how he was. So you'd wrestle every 4 months, but then you would never... That was it. Literally once every 4 months. He didn't even want you to go see other wrestling companies. So anyway, I ended up going to see it.
He's like
I felt IWS was... Sorry?
I said he's like a girlfriend.
He was very... his name is Jacques Rougeau. He's the former Mountie from WWF. And, as good a trainer as he was, he ran things pretty... He ran things his way. I mean, anybody who had a problem with it could leave at any time.
Right.
But it was hard to leave because after a while, you make friends there, and we became like a big family. So when the time to leave came, it was actually a really hard decision. But I knew for my career, just for me to get better, it was just a logical choice to make. And then by that time, I was hooked on IWS and just the kind of wrestling they did, not even the kind of wrestling they did, but just the kind of crowd reaction they would get. Yeah. Because, Jacques Rougeau's shows would draw people, like I said, that didn't really care about wrestling. So, they were going for the kids. Like, their kids would watch the matches and have fun. And, the parents would have fun too. But they weren't wrestling fans. They didn't care what you did or who did what. And they just, you know what I mean? Like, wrestling fans react differently. Sometimes crowds that don't know anything about wrestling are fantastic to wrestle in front of.
Oh, they're awesome.
But in this particular situation, it wasn't the case. And I felt like the IWS crowd was who I wanted to wrestle in front of, and I started doing that, and I thrived, and I think I improved just from learning how to listen to a crowd that before that was non-existent, because the way we would wrestle for Jacques Rougeau was we would be, everything that we were going to do in the match was dictated to us, and we had to do it exactly the way he wanted it, and that was it.
Yeah.
Regardless of how the crowd reacted, regardless of what the crowd wanted to see, it was, what you got to do, you do it exactly as I say, and that's it. Mm-hmm. So I think I improved from IWS just for that, because they had an actual crowd that actually wanted to see wrestling and actually reacted to what you did, and that was a lot of fun. And that's, to sum up, after going on and on for 10 minutes, is basically how I realized that there may have been, other ways to be a wrestler other than WWF. So once I got to IWS, I was pretty much just ready to wrestle everywhere I could, get as good as I could, and get as far as I could. Yeah. And, make a career that way.
Yeah, for sure. Have you enjoyed your time at Ring of Honor?
Of course. I mean, most of it. I would be lying if I said that I loved every minute of it, because I didn't. Yeah. But I think that's been well documented at this point, that I had rough patches. I started technically in 2005. Me and Generico did, and we did a couple shows, like 6 shows over the span of 6 months. That was our first run, and we ended up just not clicking, I guess would be the best way to put it. So we were told, maybe there'll be more opportunities down the line, but for now, this is going to be it. And then we didn't go back for about a year and a half. But during that year and a half, we were at PWG, and that was, PWG's been a staple of my career since 2004, and it's been where I've had the most fun in my life, in my career. So, not being in Ring of Honor at that time didn't really bother us. Yeah. Except, towards the end of 2007, or towards the end of 2006, I should say, I went to Dragon Gate in Japan, and I came back to the U.S., and I was like, well, now I need to, what's the next chapter? And Ring of Honor was that next chapter. Mm-hmm. So I decided to try to go back, and this time it ended up working out. So I was there from 2007 to 2014, except for a year there where I mysteriously disappeared. But I had a blast the whole time that I was there. Like, every show I was on, I made the best of, even if I wasn't presented with the best, the best scenario sometime, I guess.
Yeah.
But I found something to enjoy every time I was there, which I think is important when you wrestle, You don't want to go wrestle and be miserable, because then just stay home. It's a lot simpler.
So what do you think makes PWG such a I don't know, place to go. It's like an event. I went that one time, and I have to say, ever since I went once, I just want more. I want to go the next time there's a show that I can be out there. It is just such an amazing atmosphere. What do you think makes that atmosphere?
It's hard to say. I mean, I've been wrestling there since 2004, and they started running the Reseda building they're in now. They started running it on a regular basis, I want to say in 2008. I might be wrong. It might have been 2009. But for years before that, we were in, from 2004 to 2005, we were in this place called they called it the Sweat Box, but it was a little Jewish community center. And it wasn't much bigger than Reseda. Actually, it was probably a lot bigger than Reseda, but not, it wasn't huge. But it was good there, and PWG had a good atmosphere. And then that place closed, so then PWG started going around all kinds of like armories around the LA area. There was Burbank. There was, I guess Burbank is the only one I can remember, but there was a whole bunch. And while the crowd was always fun and it was always a good time, it was never as special as it is in Reseda. So I think that building and the proximity and just the closeness of everybody, and I guess that has a lot to do with it. Maybe the fact they sell alcohol has a lot to do with it too. But I think
so.
I think it just kind of lines up. Like the fans, it's the fans that we have too. They come to have a great time, and that should be true of every wrestling fan or every wrestling crowd. But that's just not the case. Yeah. A lot of wrestling fans are very jaded nowadays, and when they go to shows, they go to be skeptical, and it takes a lot for them to let that guard down and be happy with what they see. PWG fans is almost the opposite. They come in with no skepticism. They're willing to, they'll give a shot to anybody. Like even if a guy comes out and they don't know him and they're not sure who he is and they're not sure what they're about to see, they'll give him the benefit of the doubt. They won't like boo him out. They won't sit there with okay, now you impress me. Right. They're like, they want him to impress. They're like, yeah, I can't wait to see this guy. Mm-hmm. So it's very different. I don't know. It's I guess it's hard to put into words what makes it so special, but there's just something in that building that, I don't know, I guess maybe it's what they put in the water. I don't know. It's great, though. It's just, they captured something very special, and I think part of what makes PWG special is the fact that they don't try to be anything else.
Right.
They're never going to run pay-per-views. They're not going to try to get bigger. They're not going to try to run bigger buildings. They're not going to try to go to Philly. They're not going to try to go to New York. They're not going to try to go to Europe. They did a couple times, and they noticed that, that wasn't the best. Let's just not do that anymore. Right. They are in Reseda to stay, and they are a DVD company because they want to be, and that's just the way it's going to be. But I find that, some people may consider that lack of ambition. I think it's knowing exactly what you're supposed to be and thriving as that. And I think that's what PWG may be the only independent wrestling company that actually has that for them, is they know what they are and they don't want to be more because they're happy being that.
Right. I think that there's something very admirable about that, though. There's so many times that an independent wrestling company gets a little bit of fame and then they all of a sudden want to jump to WWE level. And that's when you see guys not getting paid and you see companies failing, is because they try and take on so much more than they're actually able to do. And I also think that that's what makes it such like a niche community where celebrities will go out there and have a good time, or, people that have, maybe they've never gone to a wrestling show before, but they'll go watch it because they've heard it's fun. And like that.
Yeah, absolutely. That happens a lot, actually. Yeah. I mean, we have a lot of regulars, but I'll see so many people leave the building and, we're all trying to sell shirts before at intermission and after the show, and they'll come in before the show, and I'll see like the regulars with people that I've never seen before, and the people I've never seen before almost be like shy and be like weirded out by, oh my God, this place is tiny and there's so many people here. And by the time they leave, they come up to me and they're like, oh my God, this was the best, and they're losing their mind and they're back forever. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So it's a party. I don't know how to describe it. Anybody who hasn't been there, I mean, I did this Kevin Steen show series for High Spots, and every single time I had a guy that wrestled for PWG on that thing, there was a 20-minute PWG Love Fest on them, to the point where it probably got extremely annoying to the people who watch more than one, but that's the thing. That's what it does to people. Every single person who wrestles there, except for maybe 3, will say that it was amazing, and those 3 were jerks. So, you know what I mean?
Yeah, no, definitely. I mean, that's how I ended up going to that show. I was out there with a friend that was, he's a producer of podcasts. He also works for Breaking Bad and a few other shows. And he's like, hey, we're going to go to this wrestling show out there. You want to come with? And I was like, of course I do. And that happened to be PWG. And I hadn't really heard too much about it. Of course, I've heard it, you know, through the grapevine and all that. But for me, I was just going there with a bunch of industry, like Hollywood industry people that wanted to go because they heard it was a good time. And it is a lot of fun, and I'll have a love fest on here as well, just because I love it so much, and so I tell people about it all the time because I do think it's such a cool place.
Have you had your last match there yet?
No, I guess that's going to happen Saturday.
Saturday, you know who it's
I
against?
I don't like to think about it.
Oh no, I just ruined the mood. Leave it to me. Leave it to me to kill everything.
Who are you wrestling against?
I'm wrestling Trevor Lee, who a lot of people might not be very familiar with, but
he's awesome.
I saw him at PWX in North Carolina last year, and he blew me away.
Yeah.
And I immediately started telling PWG that they should use him. And while it took them a year, they ended up giving him a shot. I told Ring of Honor they should use him too, and they've given him a dark match here and there, but I mean, if I was doing things, I definitely wouldn't have put him in the dark match. He would be featured on the show because I think he's 20 years old. He's incredible. And he's one of the guys, you know, that you could tell once in a while there's a guy that's going to be special, and he's like, this guy's going to be, in a couple of years, this is the guy people will talk about. He's the one. I mean, there's a lot of them. There's a lot of really good guys right now. Probably more now than ever, or in the last 5-6 years anyway. But he is probably at the top of the list. He's, I don't know. He's got my vote.
Yeah, he did when me and Maria did the Ring of Honor tryout camp, when we helped coach, he was there. And I remember him being awesome. He was super timid when he first got there, but by the time we ended up doing matches, he blew me away. I was like, holy crap.
Yeah, I'd say he's not a loud guy, and he's not he doesn't seem like he's a larger-than-life dude, but when he starts wrestling, there's something about him.
Yeah.
You know, and that's always, I find the best guys is when you look at them and there's just something about him. You can't quite put your finger on it. There's something about him that keeps you watching. I think he's got that going. And he's extremely athletic, and, I think he's going to go very far, in my opinion.
Well, good luck at that match on Friday, Saturday. Did you say Saturday?
It's Saturday, yeah.
Saturday. Well, good luck. Have fun.
Don't
cry too much. I wish I could have been at the Ring of Honor.
What's that?
I said I wish I could have been at the Ring of Honor match. I probably told Mike like 100 times. I'm like, I can't believe I have this signing. I don't want to go. I was like,
she was
so
pissed.
upset about not being able to be there because I just knew it was going to be a great night. Did you guys end up going out after? Did you celebrate at all, or?
We just went to eat. A whole bunch of us after. It was nice. It was, I wanted to hang out with Kerry Silkin because he's done so much for me, and he came to the show just, he didn't have to be there. He came to the show just to see the farewell, and I who knows when I'll see him again. So I really want to make sure to, have time with him, and everybody kind of followed us, which is nice because, sometimes a couple guys will go out, a couple guys go eat. I'll go back to the hotel by myself because pretty much everybody goes everywhere else. But this time, everybody came out, and it was nice. We all went to eat, and it was just nice to see everybody, and it was lovely. It was nice. I mean, I'm sure I'll see everybody again, and I'll keep in touch with a lot of people because that's just the way I am. But I mean, what can I say? It was very nice. I appreciate everybody taking the time to go out of their way, to be a part of that night. It was very nice. I can't say that enough.
So who have been like the people that have helped you out the most, or who you've kind of idolized in your career?
Well, when I started wrestling, I was a giant Shawn Michaels fan, so that would be one answer. And then Steve Austin came along, and I was a Steve Austin fan. Like I said, I only watched WWF. I was a Steve Austin fan when he was the ringmaster. Like, I don't know if you understand how few of those there were at that time.
It was just you, I think.
I think it was just me. I remember there's a friend of mine who I don't talk to anymore, but we were in 4th grade or something like that. And I remember we would watch wrestling together. And when the ringmaster came on, I loved it. I loved the ringmaster. And he was like, why? I'm like, I just love him. And then it was weird, like the ringmaster became Stone Cold overnight. Like they didn't do a vignette where he was suddenly Stone Cold. He was just, the ringmaster became Stone Cold, like for no reason.
Yep.
And I was like, that's weird. He changed his name, but I still like him a lot. And I remember my friend telling me years later when Stone Cold Steve Austin was the biggest thing, he would say it to people for some reason, even people who didn't follow wrestling, I don't know why, but he just got a huge kick out of telling people, like, this guy was a fan of Steve Austin when he was the ringmaster. He was the only one. So that would be another answer. But Steve Corino was actually on level with those guys. When I started watching ECW, I loved ECW right away, and like my favorite wrestlers were Shawn Michaels, Steve Austin, Steve Corino, and Rhino. Those are my 4, like, I love those 4 guys so much. So, obviously years later to get to work with Steve Corino and not only work with him, but become his friend. And now, we're close. He helps me. He's helped me through my career. He brought me to Japan. He was part of the biggest angle I ever did. The one angle I poured my heart and soul in, and he was part of it, and he helped with that. And, I wrestled him in my last Ring of Honor match, and I wrestled him before then in Ring of Honor, and we did so much together. For me to get to do that with a guy that I looked up to for so long is amazing, and even Rhino, like, I didn't get to be around him as much, but getting to work with him, and he's the best. Like, he's awesome. Anybody who ever says anything bad about Rhino in my presence will get a stern talking to, like, he's the nicest guy. They're just good people. So for those guys to help me, it was always so appreciated and such a thrill for me to get to wrestle those guys. But I said it at the end of the Ring of Honor show, the Briscoes, in my opinion, if the Briscoes hadn't want me, like if they didn't want me and Generico to be in Ring of Honor and to be stars in Ring of Honor, they could have done things a different way and we wouldn't have been in Ring of Honor. Mm-hmm. They were willing to do whatever we wanted. They were willing to make us. And they did. And I told them that, and without them, I definitely wouldn't have gotten to where I've gotten in Ring of Honor. So those are the main guys for sure. And, obviously Kerry Silkin, by simply having the company around and having enough passion and love for the wrestlers and wrestling to keep this place open probably far longer than he should have for his own well-being. But he did it because he loved it and he believed in us and he wanted us to have a platform. And, Sinclair stepped in and bought the company from him. And that's good because he got something out of this. And now Ring of Honor still has a platform to grow and to keep performing. So that's great. But he did so much for me. So, everybody that I've just named was so instrumental in helping me get to where I'm at now. So I really can't thank them enough.
What do you think of the direction of Ring of Honor right now?
I think it's great. 2014 has been a pretty incredible year from what I can tell. Like, there have been times where I was worried. Like, when Kerry owned it, I was always, a little worried because, you never knew if we were losing money or making money but you knew that whatever happened, it was Kerry's money. You know what I mean? And it was, it was always concerning to see a friend and not know what was going on. And, Kerry would never let you see it. He was always happy at the shows. He was always happy to be there, always having a good time. But you couldn't help but wonder what it did to him. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. And, we had some great crowds. We had some not so good crowds. So it was kind of hard to gauge. But I would say since the beginning of this year, obviously Sinclair Broadcasting Group's a different animal. I used to ask, how's business, how's this, how's that, and I would get answers here and there, but, when a corporation runs things, everything's different. So I wasn't so aware of how that aspect of the company was, but I know that from what I can see with my eyes, this year I've been the biggest crowds we've ever had since Sinclair took over. Yeah. And every show has been pretty much a sellout from what I can tell, and, the crowds are always great. and I always see, so many people in the crowd with, Ring of Honor shirts and, buying DVDs. And from what I can tell, like, the website's doing well. So I think, let alone, from a creative direction, I think things are back on track. But I think just in the business side of things, it seems to be going really well, which is really nice because, everybody there deserves it. So I'm glad.
It's also nice to have another place for people to work that's
of course,
very reliable, and it's just one more company that's on television and has consistent work, and I think that's really nice.
Another thing. I noticed that as the years progressed, Sinclair took over in 2011, I want to say.
I think 11.
As the years went by, I noticed that when we would go to towns for the shows, we would get noticed in the streets, and that wouldn't necessarily happen when Sinclair wasn't involved.
Right.
And even when we were on HDNet, that wasn't necessarily a thing that would happen. But I noticed that things were getting, things seemed to be getting bigger just by how many people seem to know me more.
Yeah.
And like little things, like as stupid as that sounds, but like my Twitter account started getting more and more followers,
right,
and stuff like that. And that literally, I think that plays into being able to tell how a company's doing. If their wrestlers are getting more notorious, then obviously more people are watching.
Right.
Yeah.
I would notice even at the airport, we'd get noticed the most.
Yeah.
Every time.
That airport's one of the places, sure.
Yeah. We'd go through security, and the security would be like, oh, that's the Briscoes, or that's so-and-so, and it was...
Do you know how many people I've seen come up to Truth Martini and say, you're that Jesus guy on Ring of Honor? And, I mean, he is. He literally is the Jesus guy. He has the tattoo of Jesus Christ on his chest. That's the best way to describe him. Anyway, but so many people would see him. They wouldn't always necessarily know his name, but they knew who he was.
Right.
He's the guy. He's the guy with the crazy hats. You know what I mean? So that was always cool.
Steen, I want to ask you about one thing, just because I find it so interesting. You have a family. Not a lot of wrestlers at your age have a family and are married and are very involved with his family. Do you think that's a big motivation in your career? I mean, I know it would be for me, but, is that one of the things that you're constantly thinking about and working with and working towards?
Well, it's hard because being away from them is hard. So it works as a double-edged sword in a way because it makes things really hard not to be with my kids and my wife, but I have to provide for them, and the best I provide, the better they do, and the better I can treat them, and that's the most important thing. So, of course it motivates me, but at the same time, it almost, it's hard, it makes things harder. But, one thing that really motivates me, above all else, is my son. Now he's almost 7 years old, so he... when he was 2 or 3, he didn't really notice if I was gone. He would notice I'm gone, but then I'd come back and it wasn't like I'd been gone for days. He didn't really notice it. But now he does. And he'll call me and we'll talk on the phone. And, sometimes he'll say, I really miss you when you go for wrestling. But he understands that that's what I do for money and that's my job. And he really likes it. He's proud of what I do. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And it's nothing against all the people that work in offices and whatever you could call a standard job, because obviously everybody's making money, everybody's taking care of their families, and that's great. But I think he really likes it when he's at school and people ask him what I do, and he gets to say pro wrestler. I can tell he likes that, and that makes me happy. You know what I mean? Yeah. And he loves seeing that. He watched the Ring of Honor pay-per-view, and he loved it. He loves seeing me on TV as it's happening and stuff like that, and he's just proud of what I'm doing. So that's a big thing, you know what I mean? Did you win the belt? Not this weekend. Next time. Oh, okay. You know what I mean? So that's a big part of it. But yeah, it's motivation for sure to, try to be as successful as possible, to literally this is my goal. I want to give them everything. This is what I want to do. So, I mean, it takes sacrifices to get there because, I'll go away from Friday to Sunday and I'll come back and I'll miss some stuff, I've missed some birthday parties my kids, not my kids' birthday parties themselves, but I've missed birthday parties that my son went to and had a blast. And, the other day I missed my daughter smiling for the first time, kind of. But, my wife, thankfully, is great. She takes pictures, she takes videos, she sends me all that. So there's sacrifices that go along with it, but I accept them and they do too. So we got a really good thing going, and you know, it's all in the end. It's all to hopefully one day have everything we want. So, yeah.
Well, you do have a very beautiful wife.
Yeah, thank you. I'm very lucky. Absolutely.
She's a very gorgeous woman, and you know,
that's every time I put a picture of her on Twitter, I get about for 2, 3, 4 hours. I just get mentions of what? Get out of here. I had one person say, that is your sister. That's not your wife. Well, what are you going to do? But yes, I'm very lucky, absolutely.
And I think the last question I want to ask you is, do you have a crazy road story or anything that maybe a little out of the ordinary that you'd like to share?
It's hard to single them out.
Yeah, I know.
But I guess I'm sure one of them would involve Generico. Let me see. I'll tell this one just because it's kind of funny.
Okay.
But at the time, it was not funny. When Generico and I were traveling together, I would do most of the driving for the simple reason that he didn't have a car for a couple of years until, when we started anyway. He got a car later, and I made him drive every single place we went to after that. But for a couple of years, I was driving. And what we would do for PWG is we drive out to Albany Airport, which is about 4 hours away from Montreal because the flights were cheaper to California. So we drive together through the night, often getting there around 5 a.m. for, a 6, 7 a.m. flight. So we wouldn't sleep much the night before because we would meet up at like 11 o'clock and then drive. And then we get to PWG and have the show, and then, after the show, we'd go hang out, we'd go eat IHOP with the crew and stuff like that, and then it was time to board the plane and come back home. So on this particular trip, we weren't flying out of Albany, we were flying out of Burlington, which is still 3 hours away instead of 4, but, still. So we had taken my car to the airport, and then we did the show, and we get to the airport that morning. Our flight's at 10 a.m. from L.A. to Burlington. So we go at the gate across from ours, and we lay down to sleep. He lies down on the floor. I lay down on chairs, like near him, on seats. Finally, I think our flight was actually at 10:30. At 10 o'clock, my alarm rings that I put for my cell phone. So I wake up and I see that it's boarding. So I'm like, okay, time to board. So I grab all my stuff and I kind of kick him, nudge him, and he wakes up. I see his eyes open and I see him kind of sit up. So I'm like, all right. And I mumble, it's time to board. So as I'm walking away with my luggage, I turn back around and I see he's still lying down looking at me leaving. So I'm like, oh, you know what? He'll get on the plane when he's ready to get on the plane. I'm tired. I just want to go sit on the plane and fall back asleep. So I got on the plane and I woke up. I fell asleep almost immediately. I woke up as we were taking off and I looked to my left to see no Generico. There was no human there. It was an empty seat. So I called him as we were taking off, like in secret, like so that the flight attendants wouldn't see me. And he picked up. See? I'm like, what are you doing? And then, of course, in Spanish, he explained to me that he was sleeping and missed the flight. And when I asked, why didn't you just get up when I nudged you and told you it was time to board, he said, oh, I thought you were going to get a Pepsi. But why would I take all my luggage to get a Pepsi? I had all my luggage with me. Why would I be doing that just to go get a Pepsi and come back to sleep some more? Not only that, but we're also at an airport. So even if I said, I'm going to get a Pepsi, wouldn't he think, maybe I should check what time it is in case I have to board soon? But he didn't. He just went back to sleep and woke up to see the plane taking off. So I'm like, well, so on the layover, I call him, and I'm like, well, what are you going to do now? My car's in Burlington. When I land, I have to go home. Mm-hmm. He's like, yeah, I'm not too sure. I get in tomorrow morning now. I'm like, well, listen, I was supposed to land at like 9 p.m. And he was supposed to land at 6 a.m. the next morning. So I said, you know what? I don't want to have to drive back to get you or anything. I'll just sleep in the parking lot all night. I don't care. And then we'll drive in the morning. And he goes, no, it's okay. Somebody will pick me up. Don't worry about it. When you just go home. I'm like, okay. I land. I go home. As I'm getting home, as I'm turning into my driveway, I get a call from Generico. And he goes, hey, nobody can pick me up. So the next morning, so actually what I did was I stayed up for 2 hours, because by that time, it was time to drive back. So I stayed up 2 hours, and then got back in my car and went to pick him up at the airport and brought him back and made him pay for my meal and my gas and everything else until I dropped him off at home, because I felt that's what he deserved for that one. But yeah, that's nothing too crazy, as you can see, just a kind of a dumbass luchador.
I've slept through the boarding of my flight before.
What's that?
I've done that before. I've slept through the boarding of my plane. I was coming back from Europe, and it was one of those long overseas tours, and I got into New York, I laid down, I had my alarm set, but I slept right through it. The alarm must have been going off for 45 minutes, because by the time I woke up, my plane was gone, and I...
But that's, okay, I get that happening. I've seen people almost, have that happen to them. Mm-hmm. The one constant in those people's lives is I wake them up when I see somebody might be missing their flight. I'm like, hey, I'm sorry to bother you, but are you on this flight? Sometimes I'll go, oh yeah, thanks. Sometimes I'll get, no, leave me alone. Okay, fine. If somebody had woken you up, you probably would have thought enough to be like, oh man, my flight. I woke him up. And he thought I was going to get a Pepsi with 20 pounds of luggage.
Oh my goodness, that's crazy. You'll have to get him back for that at some point.
I mean, I still, me telling it to everybody who breathes and lives is probably payback enough.
So, Steve, do you want to give us your Twitter or your Facebook or anything like that so people can follow you?
Yeah, I don't have a Facebook. Anybody who thinks I do is wrong. There's a lot of weirdos out there that pretend to be me. I don't have one, so don't get fooled. And there's a lot of people on Twitter pretending to be me too. It drives me insane. But there's only one. It's at FightsteinFight. It's the only one I have. It's the best one by far, so don't follow any of the weird, creepy ones. Just follow mine and report the other ones too. That'd be awesome. And that's it, really. That's all I got. Come to PWG on Saturday. If there's anybody near Montreal listening to this, come to Battle War on Sunday. And
you have your
otherwise,
store too.
Yeah, that's it.
Pro Wrestling Tees store as well.
Oh yeah, I'm back on Pro Wrestling Tees. Weirdly enough, it's go on ProWrestlingTees.com. It's Kevin Steen, and there's some pretty nifty T-shirts on there. And make me rich, please.
Oh, thank you so much for coming on, and good luck with everything. And hopefully, we'll talk to you soon.
Yeah, thanks, guys.
Okay.
Appreciate it, man.
Take care, man.
All right, bye.
Bye.
Is he gone? So sad.
Don't be sad. Don't be sad.
Oh, goodness.
Sorry about that. I got logged off for a little bit there.
Oh, that's okay. Steen was talking, so we were good.
I got a little worried because all I kept hearing was hip, hoop, hip, hoop, hop. And I was like, oh no, is this everyone hearing this? And then all of a sudden, the screen just disappeared. And I went, oh no. Crap, I hope that didn't happen to everyone. So thankfully it just happened to me.
Yeah, well, you missed part of a fantastic story. So you'll have to just listen to our podcast and then be able to hear the story.
Yeah, it really made me sad that I couldn't be there in Detroit. So that was nice to have him on.
Oh, yeah, for sure. I was really sad about it, too. I thought about canceling that appearance, but I couldn't. I had a contract on it, so there was nothing I could do about it, so that I could have been there for that match. But I have a feeling that eventually we'll see Steen again. No matter what company it is, PWG or Ring of Honor or wherever else. So I'm sure we'll see him again in the future. And I think that he's a really great guy, and he's a stand-up guy in this crazy professional wrestling business. So I wish him all the best.
I don't think people realize how much he's helped me. I don't know, he probably doesn't even realize how much he helped me, but that short little feud that we had from September till Final Battle, I think really helped me get on the map in Ring of Honor. And to me, in my personal opinion, that stretcher match that we had is my favorite match that I've ever had. And that's saying something because I've had a lot of fun matches that I really love, but that match is one of my favorites. And just being in there with him, he's helped me so much just inadvertently, and I think it's awesome because I feel like, and we've talked about this at length. When I first got there, I wasn't the most liked guy in the locker room, and Steen was always nice to me, and I remember talking to Tommaso about this, where Steen just didn't get what I was doing or what I was trying to do, or thought I was trying to change the style, and what I was really just trying to do was try to find out who the fuck I was in Ring of Honor, because I didn't know myself. And, after getting to know Steen and wrestling him, not even in Ring of Honor, I got the chance to wrestle him for a couple shows that Bobby Cruz put on in this area. And, and then getting the opportunity to be in that short little feud with him over the pile driver and then building up to the stretcher match, it just, it really gave me the confidence I needed to be who I am now in Ring of Honor. And that's kind of why I was really sad that I wasn't there in Detroit, because he's helped me so much, and he's been one of my favorite people in Ring of Honor since I started. So, and I truly admire and look up to him for how he's done it his way, no matter what. And I think that's just so cool in wrestling, where so many people conform and get told you have to do it this way. For a guy to really just truly do it his way, I think it's so admirable.
I do too, and I kind of want to leave it at that for this episode, and maybe we'll call it Thanks Steen Thanks or Fight Steen Fight. But
Thanks Steen Thanks is a good one.
Thanks Steen Thanks, I think, will definitely be the name of this episode. But thank you guys so much for listening, and we'll talk to you next week.
Peace.
Off with my head, I fell in love again. Off with my head, fell in love again. You lose your head, you lose your heart. Off with my head, I fell in love again. Off with my head, I fell in love again. You lose your head, you lose your heart. Fall apart.
This has been a production of fanoff.com.
And that's perfect.